Hey guys, this is Jonathan Farmer, Midnight Sun Custom Flies here with OPST, and we're tying the lead Zep Prawn today. We've got a 45 millimeter shank already prepped in the vise with OPST and intruder wire, and this is a size 1 hook. You can use a 1, a 2, a 1/0 depending on whatever species you're targeting. But we've got some medium dumbbell eyes from Hairline, and just real quick, I just want to point out, you can see these medium dumbbell eyes are set really far back on that return. They're right at the end of the return to give us some room in the front, because we're gonna cram a fair amount of stuff right in the front here. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to take just a few inches of the chenille, and you can use whatever chenille you want. I really like the crystal chenille, or the cactus chenille rather. It's bright and it's light and it's easy to use. We'll just use a little bit, and we're going to create just a little bump back here to kind of give us some support and prop to our materials. And with the cactus chenille and medium, I really like about 5 wraps. We just want a nice little bump back here because that's going to help splay all of our material. So we'll throw in some of this crystal flash. What I typically like to do is I like to take 3 strands, because we do want some brightness in the back of this fly. We want some flash in it. It's going to be the only flash in the fly, other than what gets thrown in the front and that loop with the Kraken dub. But I'm going to fold it in half. I'm just going to cut it. So now we've got 6. And I'm going to do it just beyond the bend of the hook, or right at about the bend. Kind of splay it out just a little bit. Making sure it's secure. I kind of wrap it forward, I don't know, about quarter, we'll call it a 1/4 of an inch. And we're just going to double back on top of it. And we're going to cut these just a little bit longer, so we have some different lengths. And then we'll come in and just kind of give those a little cut. Then we move on to our fin raccoon, and this is a really nice piece. But it's really helpful to keep one of these under fur combs handy. This one came from Hairline. We're just going to take a nice little clump. Oh, I'd say about a quarter diameter of a pencil, maybe half. We'll just take out a little bit of that under fur. We're going to lay that right on top of that crystal chenille. And we're just going to wrap that in. So now we're going to take our OPST saddle, and I really like the ones from the flank of these saddles, right? Like these are really good ones to use for feelers and things like that on prawn patterns. It's just a really good use of your saddle, in my opinion. It really helps you get a lot more out of them. I'm just going to pick 2 out of here that are pretty matching. When you get over to the flanks of these saddles, they don't have to be exact matches. Whereas when we're in the heart of the saddle here, I really like exact matches, right? Like you want to work back and forth like kind of like a typewriter, I'd say, but you're picking an exact match from either side. So we've got our saddles, and This fly overall, I'll vary in length depending on what species it's for. But we'll just get our length and our desired length, and I don't ever really like to go too far beyond the bend of the hook. If I'm doing it for kings in Alaska, I might use a bigger shank. I might set the hook a little bit further back, but we're going to lay those saddles in right on the side. And have them tinted down just a little bit. Get them set nice where we want them. And we're just going to double these stems back just to add a little bit of security. And just break them away. So now we're going to add in our eyes. And typically what I'll do is I'll take a big pair of pliers and I'll crimp these so the thread has something to grab onto. But my pliers right now are not here with me, and that's okay. I guess we could use, just crease it. We'll tie in our eyes on the side. And if your saddles move a little bit, you can manipulate them back to where you want them. Tie in our other eye. And just make sure that you get these about the same length. They don't have to be absolutely perfect, but I like everything to be perfect, kind of as much as possible. Just helps the aesthetics. If you like your fly, you'll enjoy fishing it a lot better. So now the part that is easiest to forget, and if you forget it, it's not the end of the world. But I like a little additional wiggle in the back of this fly. So we'll take 2 silly legs, and we're just going to run them kind of on either side of that fin raccoon. And this will just add a little bit more movement. This fly's going to have a ton of movement to it, but this will just aid in and giving it even more movement than it already has. Now we're going to take some medium gold wire. You can use really whatever wire you have laying around. I like the medium size. It's a little bit more durable, plus it'll show up just a little bit. Typically advise cutting wire with your really nice scissors, but you can get away with it in the very, very back here. So we'll tie that wire in, and I also like to double it back. So as you can see, I just double it back here, and that just really secures it and makes sure that it won't go anywhere. If you've ever had a problem with wire pulling out when you're securing a woolly bugger body or something like that, that's a little trick that'll help you not deal with that problem so much. Now we're just going to make a body of Angora goat, and we're going to start a little heavier in the back and taper our way forward. This always isn't the most cooperative dubbing to use, but I really like it because you can brush it out and it's spiky and looks really, really good. So as I said, just a little bit heavier in the back. We're getting that shrimpy kind of profile. We'll just taper our way forward. So now we're going to make like a woolly bugger hackle body, and this is where the top more schloppany kind of feathers are really useful. That's what I like to use for this. So we'll just tie this in by the base. I like to give 2 wraps and then cross over the top of the eyes and just work our way back. And then we're going to secure it with the wire. Break that tip off. And just take your time working up through the body, trying not to trap a ton of hackle fibers. Keep good tension on that thread. This bobbin is wanting to give me some real human moments here, but that's okay. We'll just helicopter that right off. So now we're going to take that Kraken dub. If I can find it because I just tossed it and lost it. Here it goes. We're going to take that Kraken dubbing. This is the Kraken Enhanced in a red. I really like this stuff. It's got a ton of little silly legs on it and moves really, really well. I'm just going to lay a little bit of that out on the table. This is just going to add to the ostrich that way. It'll just add a little bit more movement and a little bit of flash up at the front, but not a ton. The amount of ostrich you use in a fly is really up to you. I like things to be on the sparser side, but dressed enough to where it's just aesthetically pleasing to my eye. So I'd say about 1 inch or so. Call that about 1.25 inches maybe worth of ostrich. And every ostrich feather is different, so it's never going to be the same. You can't just go off of I'm just going to use 1 inch every single time, because you're going to have to use the natural variability of feather to feather to really dictate how much you're going to use. But we'll get our general length, and I like it to be right about just even with the eye. You can go a little bit shorter, a little bit longer if you like. But we can also trim this up once we stick it in a dubbing loop. We'll just set that there. If they don't. So here we go. So we're going to make 2 dubbing loops. This is a little trick that I picked up from Caleb a couple of years ago, and it's really helped a lot in keeping nice tidy heads and not constantly breaking thread and all of those things. So we're just going to stick that in the loop, and then we can really measure out where we want our tips to end. And so for me, what always ends up happening is I'll get a rough idea of where I want that ostrich, and then I'll put it in a dubbing loop, and it's always way longer. You can always cut off. You can't add more on. So I err on the side of length, and then we'll just trim that up. And we'll just spin it. Just run our dubbing needle through there real quick to pick out. I have one of those it's a little brush that really helps pick out these silly legs. I don't have it with me, but this does just fine. And we're just gonna turn this hackle on, one turn in front of another. Looking for about 2 wraps. That's going to end right on 2. We like that redundancy, so I catch that loop and tie it back onto it just to make sure that it's tied in really nice and good. And so now the little bumps of ostrich they drive me nuts. So I like to use sloppy do or silver pheasant really to cover that up. I'm a really big fan of silver pheasant. It just adds a little bit more subtle barring, and it's just really nice to work with. I've got some hackle pliers in my pocket, as a matter of fact. And it really helps using hackle pliers with some of these feathers, because you're just gonna create more frustration for yourself in the long run if you try and grab that little stem and it doesn't want to cooperate. So a set of hackle pliers handy on the bench is always a nice thing to have. We're just going to trim that out and close. We've got a couple of little bits of micro silly legs sticking out. So now for our wing, I'm going to take this golden pheasant tippet. I'm going to get a rough length. I like it to land right about where the eyes are. Everything's going to kind of land with the eyes. Those are really just kind of a good mark overall. And so we're just going to tie this in right on top. And there's a little trick that you can do with these. I'll show you with the ringneck pheasant. You can crease them and they cooperate a lot better. So I'm going to take 2 ringneck pheasant rump hackle feathers, and I'm going to get overall length there, and I'm going to strip them. And so what I'm going to do before I just go and tie them in is I'm going to take my thumbnail right on the stem and I'm just going to crease it. And that's going to give me a nice little landing point for that thread. And so they'll sit nice. So we want them kind of tinted. Into each other and right over the top, just making a nice wing. And then we'll trim all 3 of those out at once. And I'd be willing to bet you I don't have a whip finisher, so a little crazy glue. Do a hand whip finish. If you're ever in a pinch and don't, have a whip finisher, or crazy glue will do just fine. Especially if you slather it on. And it makes nice, shiny, pretty heads. There you go. There's a lead Zep Prawn.